The train moves across the savannah at a speed no one here has ever seen before. Outside the window, zebras scatter from the tracks. Acacia trees blur past, and beneath the wheels, a ribbon of steel stretches toward the horizon. 472 kilometers of elevated railway connecting the Indian Ocean to the heart of East Africa. This is the Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway. It did not exist a decade ago. What replaced the old colonial-era tracks, rusted, slow, barely functioning, is a modern transportation system built in less than 3 years. Tens of thousands of workers poured concrete across the plains. Engineers designed viaducts to carry trains over valleys that had never seen such structures. And when the first locomotive rolled into Nairobi in 2017, it marked the arrival of something larger than a railway, a new model of infrastructure development, financed and constructed by China, that would reshape not just Kenya's economy, but the geopolitics of an entire continent. To understand why this railway exists, you have to understand what came before. For decades, Kenya's railway system was a relic of British colonial rule. The original Uganda Railway, built at the turn of the 20th century, had earned the nickname the Lunatic Line for the impossibility of its construction through swamps, mountains, and lion-infested plains. By the 21st century, that line was barely functional. Trains crawled at speeds that made road transport faster. Shipping containers piled up at the port of Mombasa because there was no efficient way to move them inland. Transportation costs in East Africa ranked among the highest in the world, a bottleneck that strangled trade and economic growth. When China proposed building a modern railway as part of its Belt and Road Initiative, the offer came with a $3.8 billion loan from the China Exim Bank. The state-owned China Road and Bridge Corporation would handle design, construction, and technology. Chinese locomotives would run on Chinese signals, maintained by Chinese-trained crews. The infrastructure would be transferred, but the systems would remain, in many ways, Chinese. For Kenya, the offer solved a critical infrastructure gap. For China, it was something else entirely, an opportunity to build economic influence, secure supply chains, and establish a strategic foothold in one of the fastest-growing regions on Earth. The railway was not just a railway, it was a projection of power. Before a single track could be laid, the land itself had to be reshaped. The route from Mombasa to Nairobi crosses some of the most varied terrain in Africa: coastal plains, rolling savanna, steep escarpments. Chinese engineers spent months conducting surveys, using satellite data and aerial imaging to identify the most efficient path. They designed most of the line as elevated railway, lifting the tracks above flood-prone areas and unstable ground. The goal was not just to build a railway, but to build one that would last. On the ground, hundreds of bulldozers and graders began the work of reshaping the landscape. High mounds were cut down, low areas were filled in. Each section of earth was scraped, leveled, and inspected by survey teams who measured elevation and slope with precision that would have seemed impossible on the old Lunatic Line. Excess soil was hauled away by trucks and conveyor systems, leaving behind a flat corridor ready for the next stage. But Kenya's sandy soil presented a problem. Loose sand does not hold weight. Without stabilization, the foundations would shift, the tracks would settle unevenly, and the railway would fail within years. Engineers solved this with moisture and force. Water was sprayed across the construction site, soaking into the sand and allowing particles to bind together. Then came dynamic compaction. A steel weight weighing tens of tons, suspended from a crane, dropped repeatedly onto the ground. Each impact sent shockwaves through the soil, forcing loose particles into tighter arrangement. Heavy rollers followed, their steel drums vibrating across the surface, locking the sand into a dense, stable foundation. When the ground was ready, a layer of Kenya's characteristic red soil was spread across the corridor. This clay-rich material added weight to the sand below and created a surface strong enough to support the massive concrete structures that would soon rise from it. Those structures began with the piers. Thousands of concrete columns now stand in straight rows across the Kenyan plains, each one a testament to the scale of this project. The piers are spaced about 35 meters apart, each reaching up to 15 meters in height, each weighing nearly 90 tons. They were cast using slip-form molds, a continuous pouring process that allowed concrete to flow without stopping, creating seamless columns reinforced with high-strength steel. From a distance, these rows of pillars stretch toward the horizon like the skeleton of some enormous creature. They are the backbone of the railway, designed to withstand high temperatures, strong winds, and the constant vibration of trains passing at speed. Between the piers, the bridge deck took shape through prefabrication. Inside fabrication yards located near the construction site, steel molds measuring 30 to 32 meters in length were assembled. Within these molds, workers positioned reinforced steel cages and pre-stressing cable systems. High-strength concrete was poured in, vibrated to remove air bubbles, and left to harden. When the molds opened, what emerged were concrete box girders, each one weighing between 70 and over 100 tons, each one a structural element capable of carrying the weight of a fully loaded train. Thousands of these girders were produced, stacked in storage yards, and transported to the construction sites. There, specialized launching gantries, massive steel frames that move along the completed piers, lifted each piece to heights of several tens of meters. Workers guided each piece into place with millimeter precision, setting it onto bearings that would allow for thermal expansion and contraction. Once positioned, pre-stressing cables running through the girder were tensioned using hydraulic jacks. The compressive force created by these cables transformed separate concrete segments into a single continuous structural unit. Grout was injected into the cable ducts to protect the steel from corrosion. Then, the next girder was lifted, positioned, and secured. In hours, a viaduct section spanning dozens of meters was complete. While the elevated structures rose across the landscape, another industrial process was unfolding at the rail manufacturing plant. Inside the facility, steel billets weighing several tons each were stacked in long rows. Overhead cranes moved them toward a furnace where temperatures reached 1200 degrees Celsius. The steel glowed orange-white as it softened, preparing for transformation. The billets moved into the rolling mill, passing through a series of stands, each equipped with steel rollers machined to precise profiles. With each pass, the thick rectangular billet stretched and elongated. What began as a few meters of steel grew into a rail measuring up to 100 meters in length. The rollers shaped the three key parts of the rail: the head, which supports the train wheels, the web, which distributes the load, and the foot, which anchors the rail to the sleepers below. Sparks flew. Heat waves shimmered. The thunder of machinery filled the hall. By the time the glowing rail exited the final rolling stand, it had taken on its exact geometric profile, ready for controlled cooling and straightening. Alongside the rails, concrete sleepers were being produced. Each sleeper weighs about 300 kilograms and is cast with pre-stressing steel cables tensioned inside the mold, giving the hardened concrete greater load-bearing capacity. Elastic rail clips and steel base plates were fitted to each sleeper, components designed to secure the rails firmly in place. At the construction site, assembly moved quickly. Long steel rails were placed onto the sleepers, locked in place with clips and bolts. Each assembly, typically 20 to 25 sleepers, formed a rigid module measuring 12 to 15 meters in length. Cranes lifted these completed sections onto the prepared track foundation, where workers aligned them with millimeter precision. When two adjacent modules met, the ends of the steel rails were joined using thermite welding. A mixture of aluminum and iron oxide was ignited in a ceramic mold surrounding the rail ends, creating molten steel at temperatures exceeding 2000 degrees Celsius. The metal flowed into the gap, fusing the rails into a seamless connection that would reduce vibration and extend the life of the track. After cooling, the weld was ground smooth, invisible to the eye, stronger than the steel around it. Section by section, kilometer by kilometer, the railway took shape. Thousands of piers, tens of thousands of sleepers, hundreds of kilometers of steel, all assembled into a continuous line stretching from the coast to the capital. In May 2017, the first passenger train departed Mombasa for Nairobi. The journey that once took 12 hours by the old colonial railway now took 4.5. Cargo that had languished at the port for weeks moved inland in hours. For the first time in generations, Kenya had a transportation system capable of supporting the economy it was trying to build. But the railway is more than infrastructure. It is a statement. For China, it represents a model of engagement that blends development assistance with strategic advantage. The loans generate returns over decades. Chinese companies gain overseas projects that export steel, machinery, and expertise. Supply chains are secured, influence is extended. And for the countries that accept these projects, the calculus is different. Infrastructure they could not afford, built in timeframes they could not achieve, with systems that may bind them to Chinese technology and standards for generations. The Mombasa-Nairobi Railway now carries millions of passengers each year. It has reduced transportation costs, created thousands of jobs, and spurred development along its corridor. Cargo volumes have exceeded initial projections. The line is being extended inland to Uganda, Rwanda, South Sudan, a network that could eventually reshape trade flows across East Africa. When the first train rolled across the savannah, it carried more than passengers. It carried a vision of what infrastructure can achieve when capital, technology, and ambition align. And it raised a question that will echo across the continent for decades. Who builds the future, and at what cost? From the red soil of Kenya to the steel mills where rails are forged, the story of this railway is the story of a changing world. It is a story of engineering on a scale that defies imagination, and it is a story that is still being written, one track section at a time. If you want to understand more about the mega projects reshaping our world, the engineering, the economics, and the human stories behind them, subscribe to Quit Tech Process. We explore the infrastructure that defines our era, from the tunnels beneath the Alps to the railways across Africa. Hit subscribe and join us for the next journey.